We want to let this be a time where you guys can ask any question you want. No holds barred, right? This is our time together, and the navigators will be here. And Jody, actually, if we could have you sit more towards the back so that in the true spirit of this thing, that this is really their time here, the semifinalist time. That's okay. This is your time to ask those weird questions. And I have some of those weird questions teed up if you don't. So that hopefully, and these guys will actually help you answer this question. So with all that, so good to see you, Leah. So come on up. So Leah, Anna, and Rob, they were proteges from the first round. And we're going to, what's that? Almost. And they're going to basically, so they have gone through this whole process that you guys have gone through, and then they have come out on the other side winning money, basically, and helping their stuff go on. And so I'm simply going to be moderating, so pretend that I'm not here, pretend that I'm just a total innocent bystander, but just asking questions with these guys. And so with that, I'd love for you guys to just in like a couple sentences, 3 sentences at most, tell us what your project, what your initiative was and is today, and that's it. And that way these guys, and your name also, and that way these guys can get an idea of what you're doing today and kind of what Innovate helped you to do. So Leah, let's start with you.
All right, is this on? Yep. Hi everyone, I'm Leah Driscoll. I'm the manager of the Twin Cities Mobile Market. We are now a program of the Wilder Foundation. We weren't when we started this journey with Innovate. But we have converted a Metro Transit bus into a grocery store on wheels that goes into low-income neighborhoods or areas designated as food deserts. And we sell fresh fruits, vegetables, meat, dairy, and basic dry goods, all at below market prices so that everyone can have access to healthy, affordable food.
All right, hi, I'm Anna Bralia. I am the founder of Exodus Lending. Our mission is to provide stressed borrowers with a just pathway to financial stability. We are tackling head-on the problem of predatory payday lending. It's an industry in Minnesota that affects 30,000 people who end up in a perpetual debt trap, paying interest rates for what were intended to be small-term, short-term loans, upwards of 200%, sometimes even 1,000% interest. So our program helps people get out of that trap and on a pathway of creating a personal savings account and building relationships to obtain more financial literacy and strengthen their families in the community at the same time.
I'm Rob from the Sheridan Story. I guess I'm the founder, executive director. We are a network of what are typically called backpack programs. We distribute food to kids on the last day of the school week to take home for the weekend to fill the weekend food gap when the kids aren't able to receive the free reduced lunch and breakfast programs at school. In the Twin Cities alone, there's over 100,000 kids that live in food insecurity, which basically means they don't always know if they're going to have food for their next meal. When we applied for Innovate, we were in 2 schools doing about 350 kids, and in a couple weeks we'll be in 37 schools doing about 2,200 kids a week. So thanks.
There you go. All right, and so as you're thinking of questions to ask them about the process, you can ask them about their ideas, but really the spirit of this is ask them about what they went through, what they would advise you to do today in helpful hints, that kind of thing. So I'll just kick it off and say, what was one of the best things that you guys experienced going through the Innovate process? And again, pretend like there's nobody beyond the 3rd row here, like nobody is out there to listen to you, and I'm sorry that they're here, but they're here, and to try to help and to try to hear what else is going on. So what was one of the best things that you went through going through the Innovate process?
Well, the best thing for me is that this is like a built-in cheerleading network. It was really cool just throughout every stage of the process and I don't attend this church, and I didn't before Innovate, and to just every time I come in, people say, Leah, hey, and it happened just today, and I haven't been here in a while. So it's really great to have the support, just morale, but all the other support that can come through this process as well.
I've had a lot of things come to mind today from when I was in your seat, but I think the thing that really has had the most lasting impact is the chair of our board is a leader here at Colonial Church, Jeff Seaman, and he was my navigator when we began the process, and I was like a deer in the headlights, and we didn't know what we were doing, and it was the first time for Innovate, and Jeff and I and our team formed a bond that has lasted through today, and we did receive one of the Innovate awards, but his knowledge and time and commitment has been probably valued at much more than what we received in the financial gift. So that was a phenomenal contribution to our work.
Yeah, same thing. I mean, obviously the funding was and is helpful, but I mean, I think the theme is that it's the people of Colonial and how they are able to provide support in cheerleading and in coaching and in knowledge and experience and into people they know. So it's really for us been even like they helped us do our mailings with their mailing machine thing, which is just like a small little thing, but it's, there's nowhere for me to do that otherwise. But just the support that you get other than just a check, which again, everybody wants to check, but it's sort of the ongoing long-term support in a lot of different ways.
Great. And we don't have to keep going down the line here. So it was working well for you, I'm sure. What was one of the worst things that happened? And again, pay no attention to anybody beyond the third row. What was one of the worst things that happened throughout the entire process? Pick one. There had to be something that wasn't great that you can share with these people that, like, not just like what was bad for bad's sake, but maybe help them avoid that. Anna, you've got a mic.
Well, we got sprung on us this need to do a video. Did that happen to you guys? Did you have to make a video? Well, I didn't know that was going to happen. I had never made a video. I mean, I have an iPhone or whatever, but I had never had to do anything like that then or since. And there's a lot of deadlines during the process, and I'm somebody who works well under pressure in a deadline environment, so there were a lot of late nights, but the one that was really excruciating was editing that video. But on the other end of it, I gained some new skills and also figured out the next time we need a video, I will find someone else to do it.
Someone at Colonial?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can't really think. I mean, there were a lot of deadlines, and it was a very, I think they call it a boot camp, 6-week boot camp, and so that was stressful. I was working full time elsewhere. I mean, what ended up not really being a bad thing in the end is I don't know, some of the people back there know Bob Thomas, who's a very big personality. And he was my navigator. And before I don't think I even met him in person yet. But it was just like, I felt a little like, are they gonna take over my program or like, and you'd have to know Bob, but, and it's not that way at all. So it didn't turn out to be a problem, and they're not here to absorb your program into their nonprofit or their church. They're here to support you and as you go out and do it. So they're not looking to take over anything, which I guess that's a sort of cop out of your answer. But.
Well, I wouldn't say this is specific to Colonial in this process, but the Innovate process sort of puts you in this pressure cooker environment where you normally have, anytime you tell someone, oh, I have this idea, I'm thinking about doing this, the follow-up question is, oh, well, have you thought of this? And so, which is great and normal, and it's awesome to get everybody's ideas and insights. And one of the benefits of Innovate is you have a lot of people to bounce ideas off, and then maybe the flip side of that is you answer the same 20 questions all the time. But I think that's just part of any startup process, and it's happened to me, not just here.
Great. Any questions yet from any of you? Yeah.
I think you're in it, aren't you?
Started.
This is that.
Yeah, but beyond after you were awarded.
Oh, like the incubation period is what they call it, right? I think it's different this year, but for us it was, I think it was like 5 different Saturdays, 5 different days that we came, and maybe there was a 2 or 3 hour specific topic that we talked about. So human resources, finance, one which was really
Insurance.
helpful was applying for your nonprofit and 501c3 status. Insurance, yeah. So that's the incubation, but they're doing it, I think, differently this year. Right? I think it's just a 1-day thing, someone? So 1 day on a Saturday, I think, with all the topics in 1 day. So, but come with your questions.
So if you are fortunate to be funded, what sort of follow-up do you provide Colonial Church? Is there structure to that follow-up?
So if somebody didn't hear it in the back, so the question is, what sort of follow-up did you have to provide or did you have to give to Colonial if you were funded? Is that correct?
Well, there was a very concrete specification in our award that we had to fundraise a certain amount that they would match, and then there was also specified that we would use some of the funds for an executive director role. So that was really concrete and very, very sensible and very helpful to us where we were at. And then it's just, for me, it's a very beneficial and positive ongoing relationship when there are things like this. There was a little mini innovation day, incubation day with folks that didn't make it through to get an award last time, and that was really a really fun and interesting experience to come back and talk to people about their ideas. And I know you all have a great vision of engaging the community, so wherever we can be a part of that, it's always really fun.
And were you required to be at that day?
No, I don't think so. I don't think we were required, but it's beneficial to be here. So.
I mean, we still learn like that immersion
Yeah.
day. I didn't actually today get to go to the things, but I would have learned a lot. So we had quarterly reports, I think, that we submitted. And that was, I mean, we came back and spoke once, I believe, to the church a few months later. But
I think part of it that was cool too is like we got to develop a really strong relationship with Brian Jones through this process, and he sort of was the point person for, and I would just email him and be like, hey, we finally figured out this licensing thing or whatever, or I was still bouncing ideas off of him of who in the congregation might be good to connect about this. So, we had the quarterly written reports, which were not a big deal at all, but that was more of just kind of the ongoing checking in, which is kind of the cool thing about actually having a relationship with the people who are supporting you.
it's good practice because if you get a grant, you have to do reports typically. So.
There was one point, I think it was after we came and did our presentation some time into the first year, and I was like, yeah, we're gonna have our executive director hired by this time, and then we went through this grueling hiring process and couldn't find the right person, and I think I sent a follow-up email saying, well, what we need right now is for you to pray for us. So it's also, just that, like Leah said, that moral support.
How baked, this is similar to what you guys were saying, how baked was your idea as you came into Innovate? Like how much had you fleshed it out? And the second question I have on that, just to help, because I've heard kind of the gambit of people who are already doing their idea, it's already running, to people who they're kind of still even thinking through like this minute what their idea could be. How baked were your ideas as you came into this day when you guys went through the process? And then the second question is, how long did it take you to get up and running? Because you asked for some sort of financial award here. How long did it take to actually get that financial award applied and started to go? Does that make sense?
Well, we came in with just an idea. My idea started out of kind of some research I had done for my master's degree. So I finished my master's degree in December 2012, and then the first Innovate deadline was in January 2013. So it was very new, just an idea. At that point, we didn't know what kind of vehicle would be the best fit for a mobile market. We hadn't landed on a transit bus. So the Innovate process really helped flesh out a lot of that thinking, which was really great. So from that time, I'm trying to think. It was 2 years almost until we actually launched. So we just launched this past December. So that process took that much time. And that part of that was we had to deal with a lot of licensing and changing city ordinance and navigating all of those issues. The money we were able to start applying probably within the year of when we first got Innovate, because we were able to start paying me a salary to do all the work, which was great.
And so I guess I have a lingering question. Have you guys burned through all of the money that you received as an award from Innovate? Okay, you have.
So we came in for Exodus Lending. We didn't even have a name. We had done some research of a church in Pittsburgh that had tackled the problem of payday lending with a really particular idea that worked for them there. And so when we were here, we were saying, oh, we're just going to replicate this model that worked in Pittsburgh here in Minnesota. And that was pretty much as far as we had gotten. And we won the award, and then right after that found out that for legal reasons we couldn't do that. So we did maintain our fundraising, begin our fundraising operations through our volunteer process. We didn't hire staff until late last year. And so that was when we actually first started spending the money that we had received from the award. And we will be giving our first loans in May.
We had been operating as one church doing one school, a weekend food program at Sheridan School, which is where we get our name. And we had the second school we were in was not really the same model that we do now, or the planned model we had. So at the time of applying, we had this idea of how to replicate what this one church was doing in other schools. We had never done it. We didn't know exactly how it was going to work. And we didn't have money to do it, or really a support network to do it. So when we were awarded, I think we found out in April, right? April of 2013. And first it was, well, you have to become a nonprofit. So there's an incorporating with the state, which actually takes like 5 minutes. And then there's the 501c3 application, which is a very longer, drawn out 28-page application. And we got support for both of those things from Colonial to be able to make that possible. I think we were awarded as far as getting the check once we incorporated with the state, so that there was an entity to write the check to. But then, so we had the summer to sort of prepare, and then we launched in October in 5 schools, so 3 new schools as pilot programs. And our funds were sort of seed money, so we bought a pickup truck, and we paid for the 501c3 application, and then some savings in case a church dropped out of sponsoring a school partway through. But yeah, we spent it now. Yeah.
Great. I think we had a question back there.
Thank you so much for being here. I mean, you made it through the process and you came back anyway to help us. That's terrific. Looking at the 3 criteria for judging the Colonial fit. So you have 3 different programs, 3 different projects, but obviously all 3 of you must have excelled at that. So why is it that you each think that you were a good fit for this church, for this grant?
Everybody hear that?
Well, ours was relatively simple in that the way that we're set up as a whole organization is each of our schools has a community group that sponsors the school. So whether it's a lot of churches, companies, a couple synagogues, nonprofits, clubs. So one of our big wins really, and it's still a partnership that's a very close partnership now, is Colonial sponsors one of our schools in North Minneapolis and works with them and partners with them ongoing. But also just, I mean, I can't, from my understanding is when they sold them some land over here for the first Innovate, and they didn't want to just give away the money because they knew that there were a lot of people in their church who had business expertise, who had, a billion different things that they had professional experience in, and they wanted to get their people involved. And so really, whether it's you need one person to help you with your incorporate as a nonprofit, or a marketing person, or you want ongoing volunteers for, a weekly thing. I mean, that's what they want. They want to be able to involve their people into the community, because they could have just written a $250,000 check to any number of, thousands of good nonprofits out there. So for us, it was an ongoing volunteer and service opportunity, and really a partnership with us.
I can give a very practical example, and then I think there's a larger connection that's ongoing. So I mentioned that we have Jeff, our chair of our board. He's got a very great background in business, and just the other folks in business that gave us advice along the way. But one of our volunteer opportunities that we have with Exodus Lending is to sign up to become a financial coach, someone who goes along the process with our borrowers as they get out of the debt trap. And so that was, I think, a pretty concrete volunteer opportunity. We are still working on that. We have some Colonial folks that are on that list. But the other thing I think that was, for me, was really wonderful was really the ability to talk about the teachings in the Bible about lending, which you don't often hear a lot in the larger conversation in society. And so it was really inspiring for me to be able to come here and talk about how predatory lending was real in ancient times and as it is today. And so I think there is a really clear connection for our work to be faith-based work, and I hope that resonated.
I'm trying to remember what all the 3 criteria were. It was 2 years ago. But I think, like these guys have said, definitely Colonial involvement. What was cool for us is because we were in such an early stage of our idea, there wasn't a tangible volunteer opportunity to like go out and work on the bus at that time. But we had great church members whose companies provided all pro bono branding and design services for us. I mean, they created our logo and all of our marketing materials, and that was huge. I mean, we never would have had that otherwise. Another Colonial member connected us with our food supplier, which enables us to buy food at below cost. We got some advice, and this was during the incubation period, from one of the speakers Colonial brought in that really helped answer kind of a key legal question for us in terms of how to establish or not establish our own 501c3 status. So all of those things were really critical milestones for us along the way that just wouldn't have happened, I don't think, or happened as quickly. So that's been really cool. And then I think food access is a social justice issue, and the church and the people care about social justice, and so there's a very clear connection there that I think people know that, you know, we're here in Edina, but not everyone lives in Edina and lives like people do in Edina, and so it's been really great to see all the support outside of these church walls.
I had one more thing that Anna mentioned. It's a really good source for board members. They don't require you to put someone on your board from their church. It's not an expectation. But Bob, who I mentioned before with the big personality, who's my navigator, he's on our board, and I love Bob, so don't get me wrong, he's like an older brother to me. But I met with him last week. I'm meeting with him again next week to do he's our treasurer, so we're doing some of the budgeting, the boring stuff, the budgeting stuff. So, but it's a really good, they're smart people, they're experienced, so because when you start a board, usually it's like, well, I need to find some people from somewhere. And so that's a good resource for that too.
Other questions? Yeah.
What percentage of your time post-innovate, your labor and work has been dedicated to generating or raising additional funds?
Did everybody hear that? Okay. So what percentage of your work post-Innovate has been dedicated towards fundraising? Is that accurate?
I don't know if I have a percentage, but maybe 5%. More so it will be now because we hired our second employee, so that person can do some of the programming and I can do some more of the fundraising for the growth. But ours didn't have a stipulation of fundraising X different money for just how our grant was set up. But so
I would say for us, probably overall 70%, but on a given week by week, it would really depend. But we really did have to reach, not just because of the grant, but for our business plan, a pretty substantial financial goal in the beginning. The other half of the time was a lot of legal research, and we did recruit a board of individuals with different skill sets, so there's a lot of outreach, a lot of presentations, but I would give as a piece of advice, just trying to develop a donor list in all the work that you do, even if it's not a financial or a donor-related event.
It's really hard for me to come up with a percentage. I think, when you're doing a startup, you're wearing all the different hats. You're the cook, the dishwasher, the server, and everything else. So So I've been wearing about 12 hats, and fundraising's one of them. And some days or some weeks, it's like my number one priority, and then other weeks, it just can't be. I will say, now that we're at a place where we're scaling up and hiring more staff, I'm hiring more staff to do some of the more logistical things and community engagement work, and I'll focus more of my time on fundraising because now I have $500,000 to raise every year. So that's a much bigger number than what we had before.
Other questions? Yeah.
Thinking back to when you guys were in our shoes, through the immersion days, what would you think that you focused on up until the pitch that really helped with your pitch when you guys gave it to the judges?
So just to reiterate the question in case anybody didn't hear, what did you focus on in the weeks leading up to the pitch?
I think I really focused on how can I distill down why this project is needed in as simple of a statement as possible that everybody can understand, which I think is really important for any audience that you're speaking to. So really communicating the need and why, and then why your solution is the best solution or is really going to address that need.
Can we hear that statement?
It was 2 years ago.
We've got it on video somewhere, right?
She did a great job.
Well, okay. So you have, while Anna's talking, to think about what your pitch, what your statement was. So Anna, what?
I was going to say that we really needed to do a ton of work on our business plan. We were asking for a lot of money from Colonial, and we wanted to make sure that it was accounted for how we were going to spend it responsibly and grow the program and achieve the goals that we said we were going to achieve. Just a little anecdote. So part of my story as the applicant was that I was trapped in payday lending earlier in my life. And so, I really focused a lot of my pitch on my story and really trying to connect emotionally with folks and what payday lending is about. But apparently somebody had said, and I think this is funny, so I didn't take it personally, well, probably we want to have somebody else run the organization than the lady who got into trouble with lending.
It might have been one of the judges. I don't know.
And so we really made sure that the business plan was sound and that our whole package overall was going to back up what people weren't going to hear from me specifically in my pitch.
Do you remember?
Yeah, I do remember now. Okay. It was 5 minutes, so I'm not going to give you the whole 5-minute spiel, but I think...
So it's very similar probably than how she introduced kind of what she was doing at the very beginning. But
You said, she did say it in her intro.
at the very beginning, can
Oh.
you just give these guys the 1 to 2 sentence?
Yeah.
How you started off
Yeah.
your pitch, which is very
Sure. Everyone deserves access to affordable, healthy food, regardless of where they live, and we have many neighborhoods without grocery stores where people don't have that access. Okay. But I will say, for the 5-minute pitch to the judges, or however long it was, I don't remember how long it was, but what Anna said about connecting to the emotion, like painting the picture, too, of what you're talking about. So I told the story of a woman and how she has to walk with her 3 kids to the convenience store to buy food, and they don't have a car, and how far she has to take the bus every day, and really painting that picture.
So what'd you do in the weeks leading up to the pitch?
Me?
To prepare for
Oh,
the pitch?
yeah.
That was the question.
Oh, thanks. You just repeated the question to me. I think, like we were saying up here, you have this idea that you love, right? And when you want to talk about it, you want to talk about it for hours, like, because it's your baby. And you need to bring that down to 5 minutes. And you need to do it in a way that you tell a story and present a business plan with enough details, but not too many details. So it's hard. And so the biggest thing to do is to practice and practice and practice and practice. Stand in your living room and practice, have friends come over and practice, do the pitch to them, let them ask you questions. It's super awkward, and that's just how it is, but it's worth it. And along with that comes confidence. You know what you're going to say, but you know your program, you know it's a great program. Be confident in that, and when you present it to the judges, be confident in it's a great program, and you just need to communicate that to them. And whatever amount of money you're asking for, be confident in that and outline what it's for and how you're going to use it, and not too detailed, and be ready to answer questions if they have questions for it. But practice is my biggest thing.
Can I just add one thing? It isn't exactly about the week before, weeks leading up, but there was one point where all of the proteges gave a presentation together at church after we were awarded for an additional bonus, and it was
The
like,
wait, there's more round.
yeah, and that was extremely nerve-wracking, but exciting as well. And I had some friends come along for that, and Leah was the recipient of that. And so I was asking for feedback. What do you think that was that distinguished her pitch? And one of my friends said, "Oh, she really showed the gap." I don't even know if you remember this. She was like, "If we get this much more money, we'll be able to get the bus," or something like that. And so that really the observer that I had here, that really connected with her to see people know what their contribution is going to really go towards. And so I've been stealing that ever since.
I don't know if you guys are wondering this, but I would be if I were in your position. And you kind of alluded to this earlier, what strings are attached to winning the money? Are there any strings attached?
I don't think there's anything like required, but I mean, I think part of it for me is, I want to come back and do this again. I didn't have to do this. It wasn't a requirement. I didn't get more or less money for coming back to the different Innovate events that they've had. But for me, it was, we haven't done much yet, and Colonial supported us in our launch. But, they gave the seed money for us to where we are now. And there wasn't, other than providing a report, that's all and maybe one presentation to the church later. But that's really all that's required. But for me, I want to give my experience to you guys and your opportunity, and I want to support the church and their mission, because I think Innovate is a bold and unique thing. Churches don't do this in general, as you know. So for me personally, it was, I want to come back and do these things, but I don't have to, and that's not an expectation.
I would say I'm not aware of any strings, but it helped me develop skills to build relationships with donors, to think about how to relate to congregations, which I do in other fundraising. So that was really a benefit to me, that we've had this ongoing relationship.
But you guys had, before you could start using the money, you had to do some things, right?
Right, which
so
to not repeat
Exactly.
that, but that wasn't in terms of strings attached to Colonial,
Right.
or having to do something for Colonial. It was standards that we had to meet in the buildup of our program.
So I would echo what they said, and the money needed to go to a 501c3, and because we were still in idea stage, but moving right along and incorporating as an entity, we had to get that nailed down. And getting your 501c3 status, if that's an option you're pursuing, takes, I think right now it's about 18 months.
3 weeks to 18 months, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the
So
range they
plan
give.
on 18
Just saying.
months.
So you're saying there's a chance.
And we went a slightly different route, which is just my own personal soapbox, that forming your own organization isn't always the best option, because it requires a lot of infrastructure and a lot of startup, and sometimes maybe working with another organization might be a better bet. So we actually were adopted by an existing organization. And so while I'm the founder of the program, I now am an employee of that organization and manage the program and have a lot of autonomy, which is great. So we had to get all that stuff nailed down. They had things that they wanted in writing on their end. Colonial had the grant agreement, so there was that stuff. But again, I think when you're in relationship with people, and I feel like this opportunity is really unique because you get to build a relationship with the church, you want to stay connected, and I think that's natural. It's not expected, but it's a cool thing.
One quick tangent with the incorporating stuff. Well, first of all, I would say that really nothing that we had to do with Colonial was any different than any other grant that we would have gotten. I do reports to other grant that we've received, so it's not anything abnormal. But as far as incorporating and 501c3 and everything, the Minnesota Council of Nonprofits website has a how to start a nonprofit link. And interestingly enough, the first thing is look to see if there's another nonprofit that you can join first, or that is doing something similar that you can work underneath their 501c3. But otherwise, then it walks through everything with you. But it's a thing. It takes work and time.
So I think we have time for like one more question. Maybe two. Yeah.
I didn't hear how much money you guys all got.
Great question. And what were the awards? Do you guys remember the awards? And if you're comfortable sharing?
We got 35,000, which is what we asked for.
We got 50,000.
I think after we got the special audience vote, and we won the kids vote, which we're really proud of that. That was $250, and it's very special. So I think we were at like 41,250 after all that.
Great. So I think that's a great question. We've been asked, to have that basically published, not necessarily by the different initiatives that were funded, but just what were the different amounts that were funded, so you guys could have an idea of how the money was spread out. And again, from a judge's perspective, as I was a previous judge in the last one, if there had been that one home run of home runs, like, Mac Daddy type of idea that was the 250 idea, we would have awarded that. But as we looked at it, there were needs that we wanted to fund that would, help the church get involved in the community in different ways. And we wanted to do that in a diverse kind of a way. I mean, none of these ideas is exactly the same, and each is a little bit radical. And as we came, and I guess I'm getting on my soapbox a little bit right now, but as we came as judges into the process, and I think one of the big hopes for Colonial is we were looking for a Noah idea. And when I say that, I mean, like, if you remember back when Noah had his idea to build this ark, everybody was like, "You're crazy, fool. What do you think? It's not going to rain that much." And yet he still needed the wood. He still needed the funding to do all that stuff. And in our heart of hearts, we were looking for kind of that Noah idea that we would be funding that was really crazy. And I think I'll be really transparent here. Anna, yours was the closest. Like, that was crazy, the idea, but really awesome. And we
We're
wanted
still building it.
right, and we wanted to get behind it. So, but that hopefully gives you an idea of the process that we went through as judges to come to these different amounts to try to fund. And there's a couple more amounts that we funded, of course, as well. But we'll work with Brian and Daniel to see if we can. I don't know if it's published, or see if you guys can get a little bit more information on, what the different amounts were. Again, not by necessarily initiative, but just so you guys can see how we divvied that out. Any other last question? How about from up here before we go to you, Al? Sorry. Yes, Joy.
It sounded like you each maybe entered this by yourself. Is that correct? Maybe you had a team, Anna? I was just wondering what that looked like and how you started to build a team afterwards, I guess. Sorry.
So what was?
Did you enter the competition solo or as a team? And if you were solo, how did you start to build a team after anyway?
Did you guys all hear that question? Okay, did you enter the competition solo or as a team? And if you entered solo, how did you do it? Is that?
Yeah, and start to build a team.
And start to build the team after that.
We had a group of people that were really upset about payday lending who had been to a bunch of meetings for a long time through my church and organizations that my church is connected to, which is in South Minneapolis. But I was the lead applicant, so I was the person who stayed up really late writing all those applications. But I remember being asked to bring a team with me the very first day. So we hadn't really formed a really like concrete steering committee or anything like that, but Colonial asking me to bring a team actually helped me develop the first set of leaders that we really had. And most of those individuals stayed on our steering committee that preceded our board.
So my team was my husband and me, because we wanted to, it was a joint effort and a project we're doing together. And then so the two of us went through Innovate, and then we recruited a few different members from Colonial actually to serve on kind of an advisory committee. And so that advisory committee was sort of served as our team and guided us until we were formally acquired.
For us, it was mainly me, but I had people that were basically supporting me and, like, look at this application, how much money do you think we should ask for, and stuff like that. But it was really just me as the applicant. But then same thing is, well, you get this idea and then you get funding for it, and you're like, oh, I guess I better get some people to help me make sure I do this right, because you shouldn't do it by yourself, pretty much anything by yourself. And so then it's, like I said, Colonial is a good source for some of those advisors and strategic thinkers and knowledgeable people. But then look throughout other places in your network, and what does your program do. So if, like for us, we work with churches and schools a lot, so we have a few pastors, we have school people, and then we have some nonprofit people and stuff like that. So think of what knowledge you need based on what you're doing or want to do.
I just with what Rob just said, I remember we got the award and there was a question to me right away that someone said, well, you should hire this consultant to do this. And there wasn't any formal group that I didn't have a board yet, but I remember thinking, oh crap, I should not make this decision by myself. We need a group of people to develop the strategy and bounce ideas off. And so Colonial people have been a part of that ever since.
Great. I think we need to tie it up because we have a great friend who's coming to speak next, Kurt Vickman. And so I'd love to go to break, 5-minute break, please, and then we'll come right back in here and we'll be listening to Kurt Vickman talk a little bit. So thanks, guys. Thank you to Rob. Thank you to Anna. Thank you to Leah for coming again today.